Larry, Fort Worth Memories Museum and Groups. It is Monday. There we are. And we're on YouTube and Facebook. So, let me see if I can find the Facebook, and we're going to share the Facebook to the internet. Memories, videos, and messages, and dance halls. Ricky is in. I'm in. Why do we get some more people in? So we are live on Facebook and on YouTube. But y'all probably want to see me. So I'm going to close that part. And I'm going to put it to there. Okay, so in a second or two, yeah, there you go. There I am. Brittany's in. Brittany, are you watching on YouTube or on Facebook? Somebody check the YouTube account and make sure it's up and running. It's supposed to be. Let me see here, YouTube. But it's still showing the other picture. I got to figure out how to share the 22 seconds ago. On Memories, it's on Facebook, it's showing me. So I want to see what see what that looks like. And I guess I'll have to work on that. Anyway, y'all bear with me here for a second, and I'm going to try to, there I am. That's on YouTube. And I guess I'll have to work on that. No, I'm on it. Anyway, y'all bear with me here for a second. I'm going to try to. Okay, so we're on the Facebook channels and YouTube. So I'm going to try to how do I send messages to people? I don't know how I send it anyway. All right, I won't worry about that. So, how's everybody doing this morning? Pretty nice weather out there today. There's no rain in the forecast, but why is that? Okay. Joe is in, Ricky's in, Carolyn is in. Okay, here we go. Cowboys play tonight. Monday Night Football. We hope they can win. I never did figure out, are those Cardinals, they're in Arizona, right? That's where Emmett actually quit playing football, and he came back and they rehired him for one day or something, or 1 week or 1 month, and he retired as a Dallas Cowboy. Hold on. Getting a message here. Okay, this is Cleburne. So we're actually starting to do questions and answers. Brittany, where is Cleburne at? So I'm going to put Cleburne, November 3rd. George is in, Ricky's in. Brittany will tell us how many bikes Cleburne owes right now. We've got a little deal that's been going on for years with Cleburne's history group. 4 bikes and $100 worth of toys is what Cleburne owes. They're still riding. Okay. Okay, Mr. Larry. Our question for one bike is a short version of the railroad coming to Fort Worth originally. That word originally kind of, what does that mean? You mean the first time? I guess the history of the railroad coming to Fort Worth. Okay, so let's give you a brief history of, thank you, Tommy. David's in. Okay, so here's, the United States was in a economic downturn, really the whole world was, in 1873. So they called it the Panic of 1873. Okay? And that affected everything. I mean, the economy went to hell in a handbasket, basically. And there was a number of reasons. Is the uncertainty. That's when people lose confidence in your job, your business, your company, your country, your city, your whatever. That's when people get scared. They hold on to their money. When they hold on to that money, believe me, that cycle that always is there since the creation of mankind goes to heck in a handbasket. So there was a funding company. This is during the 1870s. This is when the railroad expansion was really in full gear. And one of the lending institutions, banks, consortments to the railroads expansion was Jay Gould out of Chicago. Well, they filed September 19th, I believe. September 19th of 1873, they filed bankruptcy. Well, that put the railroad expansion on completely on hold. I mean, there was construction, railroad ties, wood ties, everything laying on the side of tracks where the construction stopped. The railroad was just outside of Dallas, and it was coming this way. We had to have the railroad into Fort Worth by the end of the Texas Congress by 1876. Angelica's in. So in 1874, K.M. Van Zandt, who was one of the, you could say he was Mr. Fort Worth. There was a lot of Mr. Fort Worths. K.M. Van Zandt was the father of our banking system, basically. He got together with John Peter Smith and about 20, the number's not really sure, but anywhere from 20 to 30 Fort Worth citizens, stand-up citizens, I call them, that knew we had to have the railroad into Fort Worth or we would be a tumbleweed city, like Thurber, Texas. While that Thurber, Texas was useful to economies around here, it's because they produced bricks. When all the roads were bricked, Thurber, Texas' only income went to zero. So they were a ghost town. So K.M. Van Zandt and John Peter Smith, B.B. Paddock, a whole bunch of people formed the Tarrant County Railroad Construction Company. They funded it themselves. You either, to join that club or that organization, you either had to put money up, labor, or something of value to bring the railroad to Fort Worth. What was on the line was a land grant from Austin. For every mile of track, they would grant 640 acres. So we knew we were up against a timeline, and they tried to delay it all they could. Our representatives would not show up in Austin, so they couldn't have a quorum. We would say our representatives were sick, in the hospital, can't find them, whatever. Finally, it came down to a period in 1876 where the Speaker of the House down in Austin said, Sergeant of Arms, you go to Tarrant County and you bring those representatives back either in a gurney, handcuffed, whatever. They need to be here. So at that point, powers that be that knew what was going on here knew we had to really make it happen. So really the last 2 days, the last 48 hours before the Congress in Texas was going to adjourn, this had to be done by the time they adjourned. And there was even a extension filed that they granted. In the very end, City Council and Mayor, powers that be in Fort Worth, extended Fort Worth's boundaries 3/4 of a mile to the east to make this thing happen. When the when the train was coming across Village Creek, the railroad ties weren't even nailed down. They didn't have stakes. They were holding them in this little coal engine 610, crept along at, a snail's pace, so it wouldn't fall off and fall into the Village Creek. But it finally came in July of 1876. And so therefore, our little town, that then allowed us, once that hurdle was over, we started getting other railroads here, and it ended up called the Tarantula Map. There was 9 railroads that came into Fort Worth, and so that allowed us to get commerce in and out. Beef, we could then ship it out on rail cars instead of driving cattle to Kansas or whatever. So that's really what saved our city. Those individuals, Bill Palmer's in, yeah, they were, until there was no more use for their bricks. So those individuals that formed the Tarrant County Railroad Construction Company are the ones that saved this city. I don't care what anybody else says. There would have been no place to save for the Tandys, the John Justins, the Basses, the Sid Richardsons. There wouldn't have been anything here for them to save or to progress forward. So, Cleveland, that's your answer. They faced all kind of odds. There was no money, and the construction crews just stopped. They left their railroad ties, all that stuff, just on the side of the track there, because all construction stopped. And that started when Jay Cook and Company filed bankruptcy in 1873 or 74. That was the panic of 1873. Let me get the correct date. When did Jay Cook and Company file bankruptcy? September 18th, 1873. The collapse of the prominent banking firm, which had overextended itself by heavily investing in Northern Pacific Railroad, triggered the Panic of 1873 and a multi-year economic depression in the United States. That's correct. So Jay Gould, which was not Jay Cook, Jay Gould was a railroad magnate. He owned a railroad, and he also helped the demise of the economy. They just were gung-ho on the railroads, and it caused really more than a United States panic. It caused a worldwide panic, because ever since almost instantly that boats could get here, United States became one of the largest consumers in the world, and today we are the largest consumer in the world. In other words, if people always think, well, the United States goes under, they won't let it go under. The rest of the world will prop up the United States always, because we are the largest consumer in the world. Without us, they're nothing. Without the United States, all of these countries that are at war and all of that, they are nothing. They're gone. They're history. Not sure we could survive it, but they definitely would not be able to survive it. So, okay, Brittany, so we're going to get them down to, is that cool with y'all, Cleburne? I hadn't seen any response yet. They're going to give us $2 for that, so they're now at $6 and $100 worth of toys. I don't know when Burleson's group's going to start the Q&A session. So we got $6 coming from Cleburne. South Texas question, how long have they been buying bikes for? Brittany, how long has Cleburne been doing that? 3 or 4 years for sure. Maybe longer. But for sure 3 or 4 years. Yeah, they also, Kent Perkins is right. Cam Van Zant did donate. He was not the only one. There was other ones. I'm glad to see Kent Perkins is a historian. Just curious. Kent, I hadn't thought about that. I was in you talk about his house, right? That house had no windows. So the cellar, if you're asking about the cellar itself, there was 4 cellars. The one in Fort Worth that started closer down to where the convention center is. Then it moved up on Main Street. There was one in Dallas, there was one in Houston, and there was one for a very short period of time in San Antonio. I actually worked for Kirkwood at one time. You're right, his house had no windows, a solid steel door with only a peephole. I can't remember. That house has got to be there in some form. I forget the address. I'll find it. I was in that house several times. No windows. That was the weirdest house I ever saw in my life. So there was 4 cellars. I'll tell you another little piece of history that Kirkwood told me. When they were trying to locate where Lee Harvey was after he left Mexico, this is prior to the assassination, he worked for the cellar for 2 pay periods. Kirkwood showed me the checks. He was a dishwasher. He made, I think it was $1.05 or $1.25 an hour. And Kirkwood had the checks. That cellar in San Antonio didn't last that long. The one in Houston thrived. I was there. I went down there a few times. One in Dallas was kind of okay. The one downtown Fort Worth was Going Jesse. Another question about the cellar, not from Kent. Why were the police not very often in the cellar downtown? Because Kirkwood always had a lawsuit against him. He claimed police brutality, police harassment. If you remember, for the people that went to the cellar, when you walked in and started up the stairs, that hanging down, it said, cover charge $1,000. So that was Kirkwood's way, the door people, it was their way of, if they didn't want African Americans or Mexicans or cowboys or whatever group they didn't want, they'd just say, hey, it's $1,000 cover charge. Well, I don't have it. That's really not real, is it? Yep, that's real. If you ain't got it, see ya. Kirkwood was a strange character. Let's talk sometime, Ken, about Kirkwood flying drugs, and then when he'd get out to Spinks, he'd call the police and tell them he was turning them in. I think they finally told him, Pat, you need to do this before you fly the drugs. Anyway, Pat was definitely one of the most unusual. Pat and Faye Kirkwood. She was a rodeo rider, I believe, or She's always dressed Western. Anyway, I did try, when he was selling the Four Deuces, I was trying to buy it. I was going to try to make a cafe and gambling house out of it. He wanted to cut high card. I mean, that guy was something else. Pat Kirkwood. Okay, let's do our sponsors. We still need a dentist. We hadn't got a dentist yet. I can't believe we can't get a dentist to come on board. Railhead Barbecue. Charlie Guerin is one of our sponsors. He's also on the board of directors at Larry's Kids. American Senior Benefits of North Texas is Andrew Wallace and Chasen Smith. And open enrollment is going on as we speak. Boom Bond is capital B-O-M, capital B-O-N. That is a remodeler, handyman, Mark Perez. Dana Lang, Dana sells Cowtown. She's in the real estate business. Rex Benson, Rex's Bar and Grill. Also, Old South Pancake House, 2 locations. One on University is 24/7. The one in Burleson opens early, stays late. They're open right now. David Hart Painting. He and his wife Sherry are very active in lots of civic duties and events in both Tarrant and Parker County. Fort Worth Florist, Jeanette and her team have sent flowers all over the globe for our members. Termite King Pest Control. Brad has a program to get rid of those pests at your business or at your house. Cross Electric, Brandon Cross. They do commercial and residential. Tri-State Dent is Jason. They do door dings, minor hail damage, minor dents. They come to you and pick your vehicle up, and they work with your insurance company on the deductible. Eric Walsh. Eric is in the real estate development business, real estate and development. He's also on the board of directors at Larry's Kids. Royal Flush Plumbing. That's Royal Flush Plumbing. They are a plumbing contractor. We've gotten a lot of good reviews too. K Ranch Roofing. That is Jorge Hernandez. He's the owner. I guess this is the 3rd year they've been a sponsor. They've done a lot of roofs for our members. So if you're not sure if your roof has hail damage or some kind of damage, you can call K Ranch Roofing and they'll send somebody out and they'll inspect your roof for free. Fort Worth Lumber is down on I-35 South. It's a huge complex. If you need building materials, building plans, you just want to talk to somebody that's knowledgeable about building, that's the place to go. Winstead Paint and Body, Clay Winstead. I've personally been using Winstead for 40 years. Blue Mountain Cafes, all 5 Blue Mountain Cafes are sponsors on our group, as well as Stinger Sports Bar in Azle. That's the old Mark Dean barbecue store. And they also own the Anchor on Eagle Mountain. Phelps Family Auto Care is in the Burleson area. They've got great reviews. They really take good pride in their customer reviews. Check them out. Stroud Auto Supply, Haltom City and Riverside. It's not very often you see a independent auto supply go up against O'Reilly's, AutoZone, all of the big ones. But Stroud does. I know for a long time because I bought parts there when I was 15. Rockwood Go-Kart and Mini Golf. They're on University just before you get the Jacksboro Highway. Same family since the 70s. In the 70s, they were on University down here by the zoo. Melinda Hicks has the patch. The patch rejuvenates stem cells. Grateful for Your Trees is Dickie Carr. That's Richard Carr's nephew. They do everything there is to do with trees. They cut them down, they trim them, they grind the stumps down. They do bobcat work, they do retaining walls, privacy fences, sell firewood, they do all of it. Dickie Carr Sand and Gravel. That's Pat and Richard Carr. Richard is 2nd generation. If you're in the building business and you need 20 dump trucks full of sand, Dickey Carr sand and gravel. Schwartz and Hanson is our architectural sponsors, very active in the bike giveaway. A. Bird AC and Heating, that's Dub Peacock's company. Your central heat and air unit, you never look at it because it's outside, and unless you do your own yard, you don't even look at it. For $95, you can call A. Bird AC and Heating. They'll send one of their experts out there to check your unit out. It's preventative maintenance. It's like changing the oil in your vehicle, physical, going to the eye doctor, the dentist, any of that. $95 is pretty cheap peace of mind. So A. Bird AC and Heating. Old South Pancake House, like I said earlier, 2 locations. Burleson opens early, stays late. They're open right now. University is open 24/7. Steve Coburn, Coburn's Catering, 3rd generation. They opened on North Main in 1946. They're still on North Main. And Steve also has come out with a rub to put on your meat before you barbecue it. So we need a dentist, we need a mechanic in Fort Worth, we need a tire store, we need a roadside assistance. We need a lot of things. So holler at us. I can get you more exposure than any other platform there is. Newspaper, TV, any of them. And it's cheap. How do I know what I know? How do you know what you know? It's all up here. I was blessed with a photographic memory, and really what I've got is even more than a photographic memory. I can recall stuff to the minute from about age 9. Good to hear from you, Kent Perkins. Come see me at the museum, sir. Ruth Buzzy, we miss her. What else do we ask in Larry this morning? December 13th, Farrington Field. Gates will open at 6:30 a.m. Let me see what other questions we got here. Maryland's in. There were long slit windows on the 2nd floor. The house is still there. It's a half mile from my house. There you go, Kent. I don't remember the slits. James is in. George is in. Aaron is in. The slits, I do not remember the slits. But the house is still there. Take pictures of it, Bill. Next time you come to town, show me. Or next time you come to the museum. It was pretty snazzy inside. Kent is wanting to know the cross street, or the cross streets. There's not very many questions that you can ask about Fort Worth past that you can't get an answer on this group. There's lots of people with lots of memories. How do you become a sponsor? Just call me. We can do it all by the phone. Mr. Kirkwood, yep. He was really a good guy. Okay, I got to get out here and get started. See y'all on the first break. Let's see, we go. I guess this will turn off.